Hello and welcome to the workshop. On today's episode, I'll be taking some coloured pieces of paper and some burl offcuts, and I'll be joining these two together and hopefully making myself an awesome project. Now before I go jamming any paper between the burl, I need to cut them in half. So now that I have all my pieces cut in half, I'm going to take them to my disc sander and flatten them out. Now that all the pieces are in order, I can cut the paper into strips, add some resin and glue it between the gaps. The resin I'm using for this project is a 2-part epoxy resin, mixed at a ratio of 3:1. We initially mixed 2 cups of resin for this paper, and it did start to get a little warm, which meant it was starting to cure, so we had to get a Rigle on to make sure we got all the paper covered before it started to set. So it's now the next day and my resin's all nice and hard. So the next thing I need to do is take all my clamps off and get this block out. I can then start work on making the next one. Now since this process will be exactly the same, I'm going to do it off camera and then I'll come back to you guys when it's all done. This is going to look awesome. Now if you guys want to see some behind the scenes of this project, check out our latest episode of the vlog. I think you'll enjoy it. We had a lot going on. So now that I have my two main blanks, the next thing I'm going to do is take them to the bandsaw and split them in half. I'll be able to save that offcut to make something else in the future. Now that I have all my slices cut, I can find the best part of the blank and trace myself a square. So now that I have all my pieces cut to size, the next thing I'm going to do is glue more pieces of paper in between each layer. So now that all the resin is cured, I can get it out of these clamps, glue it to a waste block and start turning it on the lathe. There we go. Look at that beautiful looking blank. I can't wait to turn this up now and see what wonderful patterns we get. Well, it did take us a while to get this blank finished, but we're finally here and we're now ready to turn. But there is one more final thing I want to do before we mount this on the lathe, and that is take off these sharp corners. That way it'll help prevent chip out. Well, that felt like I was turning a rock. I was using my high-speed steel chisel at first, and as soon as I hit these pieces of paper, it just took the edge off straight away. So I switched to my carbide tip, which is doing a better job, but still, as soon as I hit these bits of paper, it's definitely getting harder. But I think we're getting there. These patterns are starting to look really cool. I've just listed some new items in my Etsy store. I've got some new eggs, donuts and frogs. If anyone's interested in checking them out, I'll leave a link in the description. So my original plan for this project was to turn it into a sphere, but after seeing this paper start to disappear on the top here, I've kind of changed my mind. I think I'm going to keep it more of a cylinder shape with just a rounded top and a rounded bottom. That way I can keep most of this paper on here. Now you guys might have noticed that I've swapped back to my steel chisel. I just found it a lot easier to use and I'm just sharpening it a lot more often, which seems to be working. So now that I've got my final shape all finished, it's time to cut off this top. So now that I've got that lid cut off, it's time to drill a big hole. So I think I was being a little too ambitious there. I just thought that because it was brand new, it might have been okay, but too big. So I've gone down a few sizes and then we'll slowly open it up. Well, now that I've finished all the tooling work, it's time to take this off the lathe and start sanding it. Now normally when I put my projects on this lathe, it's because I do some wet sanding. But this week I'm going to do something a little different. I've got one of these bowl sanding attachments. And you get these little Velcro sanding pads and you just put it on the end here. And it's got a little bearing so it spins around. And then you just turn the lathe on, this spins around, and it sands your project. I think that's really cool. Now this is normally the part of the video where you'd see me take my project and give it a buff. But on today's episode, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to give it a spray finish. Now the main reason for that is I feel like this is going to get a lot of use, and I think the spray finish might give it some extra protection. So if you've been a fan of my channel for a while, you'll know that I don't normally turn boxes. So I really stepped out of my comfort zone for this one. And if you guys like it, let me know by hitting the like button. And if it's your first time here and you like what you see, hit subscribe. I put new videos out every week. Now let's check out this box.